Hi, my name is Julian and my MTU student ID is T00215989, and this is my DevOps project in the Cloud Application Development module. For my project I created a web application in Laravel and Bootstrap, and I've uploaded it to my GitHub repository. The application is based about 71% on PHP, 27% on Blade, which is a template engine used by Laravel, and also uses some JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. In my screen recording, I'm going to demonstrate a rapid deployment to a serverless AWS environment, and I'll also demonstrate what the application does and what cloud technologies it uses. So first of all, I'm going to clone the application to my development machine, which is an EC2 instance hosted on AWS Ireland. So I'm going to connect to that machine now. That's the application cloned onto my machine now, and I am going to delete all the vendor files. And copy my env file into the application. I'll then run npm and composer to pull in all the required packages. And finally, I'll compile the CSS and static files, and then the application will be ready for deployment. For the deployment, I'm going to use serverless.com. So I'm going to set up the application there. Create app, serverless framework, existing project, and the app I'm going to call Laravel app, and service Laravel, hit deploy, and I'm going to select my Amazon credentials, which I've already stored here. And then it's going to wait for my deployment. So I have a serverless YAML file here, which has all the variables needed. app, Laravel, my org name, and the service. I'm going to deploy this in US East 1, which is Northern Virginia. So this will take a few seconds, and basically what it's going to do is it's going to set up the Lambda functions and the AWS API Gateway functions and the endpoints for me. And that is it published. So it's given me the endpoint here, and I should be able to use that URL to access the application through my browser. And if I go to AWS Northern Virginia, I can see that the Lambda functions have been created for the application deployment. Laravel Dev Web and Laravel Dev Artisan. And it also uses the API Gateway. And CloudFormation. That's my stack. The application also uses a RDS database hosted by Amazon, which I've already set up, and it contains some of the data needed by the application. That database is actually hosted in Ireland. So the connection details for that database are contained in the application's env file. So that has the database credentials. I'm using the breadth package, which allows me to run PHP code on the serverless environment. And I also had to set up an S3 bucket to host the static files like CSS, images, etc. So finally, what I need to do before launching the application in the browser is to sync the application static files to the S3 bucket. This is the S3 bucket, and I'm going to sync the files manually now, although I can integrate that with the deployment as well. For now, I'm just going to do it manually. I'm going to use the AWS command line interface tool for that. That's going to upload them from the public directory to the S3 bucket. And now I should be able to launch the application in the browser. The credentials I'm going to use here to authenticate to my application are already stored on the RDS database. So I'm going to log in. So once I'm authenticated, the application makes a few functions available. For example, I can view and create tickets. So these are already stored on the database. I'm just going to create a new one as a test. and that should now be visible. There it is. Another function of the application is to store and make available rejection logs from a production postfix mail server, and for that I created a REST API that scans the mail server logs in real time, and when it finds a rejection entry it uses the API to update the RDS database, and those will then be available on the application here. So I'm going to just set that up on my mail server, and for that I'm going to need the URL endpoint, so I created a small PHP file here called pfparse, and I need to update there the URL. The API uses a bearer token to authenticate, and that token is already stored here. It's also stored on the RDS database under my user credentials. So it basically opens the mail server log and tails it, uses a regular expression to find what I'm looking for, and once it finds a match it's going to send it to the API using PHP curl, and the bearer token is sent in the header here. The data it sends to the application are here, so it sends timestamp, SMTP response, the client IP, from and to addresses, the protocol, and the helo name. So I'm just going to let that script run on the server, and we should see the application being updated. To simulate this, I'm just going to create a telnet connection from another server and trigger a rejection. And there it has triggered a rejection, and the PHP script found it in the log, and it should have sent it to the application. It did get a 201 created HTTP response, so we should be able to see that now on the application's front end. And there it is. So it updated the database through the API and showed us the information on the application's front end. Another way to simulate this is by using the Postman app to simulate an API request. So for that I will again need the URL here, and change it here. It's got my token here stored as a bearer token, and then I have my body set up here, and send the request, and that should also be visible on the app now. There it is. And as you can see, it has since also logged some more real-time rejections from the PHP script that is running on this host here. I think that concludes my presentation. I realize I went a bit over the time, but I hope it wasn't too boring, and thank you for watching. In conclusion, I think this demonstrates how quickly an application can be deployed to a serverless cloud environment, also redeployed and or updated. It also uses some principles of microservices by using separate packages within the application itself and a separately hosted RDS database, which is segregated from the main application server, or serverless, should I say. Again, thanks for watching, and thanks to Titan HQ for sponsoring the AWS account.